let's start
So
off with
I actually had a question. So, is this something that you guys are doing like other than your actual full-time jobs, where you're just trying
correct.
to
So
do
till
all of this?
7:38, me and Saurabh work our office jobs, and then
Mhm.
post that we try and take out at least 3 4 hours.
That's good on you guys, man. That's awesome. That's a lot of work actually.
So
We are enjoying this currently. Let's see how
yeah.
far we can take this. Meet Dr. Murtuza Shergadwala, who is an accomplished individual with diverse education and professional background. He is an alumni of Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, and he did his internship at KAIST, South Korea. He also had an opportunity for being an exchange student at École Centrale de Nantes, France. He had continued his education and completed his PhD from Purdue University and is currently working as a data scientist at Pidlert AI. His human-centric design roots put him in a unique position as a data scientist who empathize with engineers and designers who leverage AI for their domain-specific needs.
It would be great if you could, define your journey from IIT Guwahati to Purdue to, now working in a startup or a company.
Yeah. Thanks for introducing me, and thanks for doing all of this. I think it's much needed, especially in this age of digital communication. Access to information, I think, is the biggest key to success, especially if people can gain information in their early stages. I would have benefited from it if I would have had a resource like this. So just to sort of map out temporally my journey. Of course, I started at IIT Guwahati, and really IIT Guwahati was the platform that gave me all the opportunities that built on top of each other. So there is obviously a lot of luck element in the beginning. So for people who are starting out right now, just trying to figure out what to do, there are a lot of things related to opportunities which are time based and luck based.
Correct.
And once you get your initial opportunity, then building on top of that, using your CV, and then building, it becomes easier. It's actually the first couple of steps that are the hardest. And then building on top of your previous work is very easy. So for me, the luck factor really started from securing an internship in South Korea in my second year. And that was really my luck factor, where I got the summer internship opportunity at KAIST, South Korea, and it was completely different from what I was doing, right? I was a mechanical engineer, but then, actually, I was pursuing mechanical engineering at that point of time, and I got to get introduced to ubiquitous design in civil and architectural department at South Korea. And those 3 months of internship experience was both culturally as well as technically very enhancing. And so typically students, think of going to internships abroad just to have a great time and travel and all of that. But even if you're spending like 30 to 40% of that time doing some actual work and getting stuff done, you can build a lot of connections, and that helps you grow. So that's what happened with me. It started with KAIST, and then I went to in my third year, I got another internship opportunity with my PhD advisor, who's now my PhD advisor, which was at Purdue University, where again I got to do an internship in my third year. And then in my fourth year, which was my final year, I actually applied for a 6 month study abroad program through Erasmus IIT,
Correct.
Collaboration. And so I went to École Centrale de Nantes in my fourth year, which was in France for 6 years, 6 months. And I actually missed graduation because of that, because I was there. And a fun fact about me is that I have never attended any of my graduation ceremonies, even though I have got the highest degree that there is. I missed IIT Guwahati convocation. I skipped masters. I went directly for a PhD, and PhD convocation I could not attend because of COVID. And so, so here we are. But yeah, so that's how at least in IIT Guwahati, having an internship experience every year definitely gave me that edge as compared to, my other peers who maybe did not have that internship experience. And then I always wanted to go for grad school in general. Like, that was something that I always wanted to do. I knew that, especially after my internship experiences where I was not necessarily doing mechanical engineering, I was doing like stuff that professors had plans for their interns, and they gave a project and you were focusing on problem solving, and you figured out your way by reading papers and doing what you could do in that period of time. And that's what made me realize that, okay, I need to pursue grad school. And then there is this also thing about being geeky and having that like thing that other people keep telling you that, yeah, like you should pursue grad school, like that's the way to do it, blah blah blah. And at that time, like, I had no clue what is research, what is it to have a PhD. It was just like that fancy doctor title, and it was the idea of like getting a doctorate and all of that. Because in college, unless you actually do research, which we don't, as undergrads, it's not even like really, in the
Scratching
curriculum.
the surface is what you're saying.
Right. Like, we don't even know what research is. Like, what does it mean to think about research? Like, it is expanding the boundaries of knowledge. And what does that mean? Like, truly, we don't understand. So I actually went into my PhD, like, being completely clueless. And I was at that point of time, I remember I was giving advice to other people that, like, how to, apply for grad school and so on, with me being completely clueless of what grad school is myself. So that's one thing that I really want people to know when they are trying to make this decision of really holistically look at your lives. Like, what is the socioeconomic background that you come from? What is the financial background that you come from? Is really money the focus of your career because you have a family to support, or do you come from money and you don't have parents who are bothering you about, because it's Indian cultural thing too,
Correct,
right?
correct. So,
US culture is very different, right? So that's how I kind of went into my PhD program. Mhm,
get deeper into this also, we had few questions. One is, we were speaking to our other guest as well. So
mhm.
everyone mentioned that they were some or the other time were very confused. So that confusion, I think, stays throughout your life. For maybe right now you are clear about various decisions, but obviously there are few other confusions that might have arisen. So what is the right way to deal with such thoughts that that might arise, or that might come in the way? That's something we wanted to dig deeper into.
Yeah, so I think that this is such a deep question, right? Because it touches several things. It touches several things. First, to start off, um, I used to write on my Quora profile. At some point, I used to my headline was thoroughly confused,
Mm,
hypocritically sorted.
mm,
So like, to the rest of the world, it almost felt like, including my friends, they used to say, tu to set hai,
mm,
this is your GPA,
mm,
you do well, like, you're set, right? Basically, because the other side of the hill is always greener.
mm,
Like, when you're looking at somebody else and trying to look up to someone, or even compare yourself to your peers,
mm,
you will always feel like they are more sorted than you are,
mm,
because you are more aware of your own confusions and their achievements.
mm,
So it creates already that bias,
mm,
because you don't get to really experience the confusion of other people,
mm.
that you think that really your confusions are the worst and end all be all of the world, and other people's achievements are something that, like, you start like taking it in a negative way, because you don't have those kind of achievements to show
Correct.
off of. And I think that that's one of the biggest lessons, that your journey is unique,
Mm,
and you will do a disservice
mm,
to yourself
mm,
by not recognizing the uniqueness of your own journey,
mm.
by
Yes.
comparing it to somebody else. So I think the first thing that what you should build towards is developing your unique journey, identifying what is unique about you, what is different about your situation.
Mm,
And if you can't say what's different about your situation, that means that you yourself are not aware
mm,
of what is it that makes you you, or what is your journey. And it can be any part, like, your parentage, your city that you come from, the
mm,
kind of work that you have done, the friendships that you have developed, the experiences. It's not just about technical knowledge.
mm,
It's about holistically understanding where you come from and what makes you unique. And you can be very confident in saying that you are the only person in this world who has experienced all those variables in its totality, the way you have experienced as compared to somebody else. Of course, this kind of realization comes over a period of time. You can't expect an undergrad who is like struggling to just get
Correct.
homework to like have this sort of profound realization. But at least like if we can, if there was somebody who could tell me that try to recognize more, focus on your uniqueness, focus on your journey rather than comparing it to anybody else, you would be at a much more peaceful state of mind and maybe even achieve more stuff if you were, if somebody told you that everybody doesn't need to follow a cookie cutter path. I'm kind of losing the chain of thought here, but as far as these difficulties that the question that you asked, I think that what happened is that for me, I was so egoistic about doing mechanical engineering because literally everyone in Pune, that's where I come from, told me to take CS. Everyone told me you're smart, do software engineering, like that's the thing for you. And I always wanted to, like, I followed like this whole like this childish story, right, of Transformers and Iron Man and so on. And I was like, this is like mechanical engineering, like this is what I need to do. And funnily enough, I didn't pursue robotics at all in IIT Guwahati. So it was all based on some fancy mumbo jumbo that didn't come to fruition. It was just great to say that, I'm a mechanical engineer, I like, do transformer stuff and so on. But like it was, and by transformer stuff, I don't mean the actual concept of transformers as in the movie Transformers, right? So it's very superficial, my idea and slash love for mechanical engineering. And I remember there's this guy, Laryl Pinto, he's a professor now in robotics. And when I saw Laryl and his love for robotics, I realized like, holy shit, like how fake my conceptualization of mechanical engineering was. So I actually when I started looking at my peers and realizing their passions, it helped me realize what I'm not passionate about. And that's a great start, like looking at people who are passionate and realizing how they are passionate can teach you two things. One is, understanding what passion is. And then second, what you're not passionate about, because there are some people who will go crazy about something, right? And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to do that, but that does not mean that there is no passion that you can have, so that's the confusion that came. It's the confusion about being passionate about something. So then I started trying all these different things, right? Like going for internships, like, and okay, there are certain givens here. Some of the givens were that given that we are in a constrained education system that like puts numbers around you, numbers do matter in the sense that having a high GPA and gaming the system and like trying to do well in your exams, all of that unfortunately becomes a part of this game theoretic approach that you have to do. Because I cannot relate to somebody who was a 7-pointer or an 8-pointer struggling to be heard or be seen or getting some sort of, and I cannot talk about that experience because I had it easy that way. Where like for me, I never had to justify why my grade was low or why I certain semesters like I was feeling down or something. I didn't have to come up with anything like that. So that's a given. Like for me, that was a given that my GPA was high. For me, it was more important about convincing other people that I'll be able to solve this problem in this particular amount of time and I'm a good candidate for an internship. But confusion was always there, so that's something that I just want to let people know that it was not all set.
That you mentioned like one thing. I think if I'm not wrong, Western culture is also professionally it's driven like they even know the amount that they will get for an hour, right? Whereas in India it's more of a monthly kind of concept, a monthly wage, and even in Western world they even know a concept. So the reason I'm saying this is because they would also understand the value of time more clearly. So a month is a very huge time to understand what's the actual amount of time wherever I'm investing. If I'm saying no to going somewhere, right, so obviously I'm dedicating that time for something else because that might be of worth which I think my value per hour is. So I think that something is also very important, where that is the reason more professionalism we can see at western world, because time का जो value है वो थोड़ा ज्यादा समझ में आता है because of value per hour wages.
I don't know if there's more or less professionalism. Like there is a different idea of
Mm,
professionalism in India for sure. But the important thing is that the notions of professionalism are different because of the collectivist versus individualistic cultures. Like I
mm,
can say no to my manager
mm,
if when I'm in this org right now and my manager says that you need to do this, I will ask him,
mm,
is this something that I need to do or is it a good to have?
mm,
Because there's other good to haves that I can do. If
mm,
it is needed to do, then I will drop everything that we are doing and I will do this.
mm,
But let me know
mm,
whether this is a need or a want,
mm,
right? And I can have that level of conversation with my manager,
mm,
and there's a difference, right? Like and my manager will be like, yeah, this will be good to do, and I can tell him that no, like I feel like there are these 10 other things that I'm doing already and I
mm,
know that I can do this,
mm,
might as well achieve this for the quarter rather than do this something that's random that we don't even know it's going to achieve anything,
mm,
so that manager, because he is my manager,
mm,
and so as an individual I know that I can give heat to my manager
mm,
because it's actually he's the one who's managing me, and I can tell him
mm,
that this is what makes sense for me.
mm,
This is a very different concept as compared to like working in India.
mm,
Like in India, just because of our collectivist culture,
mm,
people are not used to hearing the word no.
mm,
When you say no,
mm.
it becomes like it gets connected to like social values. Like, you're saying no to me, it becomes personal,
Correct,
and
correct,
this
correct.
happens even in family,
Mm,
right? Whereas there is no respect for the fact that you are an individual, you have your own life, you have your own schedule, and if you're
mm,
saying no, there must be something else. That
correct,
level of understanding is not there. So the dynamics change.
correct.
For me, I've gotten like very, very comfortable working in the Western culture because of that, because I don't have to deal with all that drama, like the emotional drama that comes along with like, saying yes or no to something and so on. But then there are people who can't function like that, right? Like
Mm,
there are people, like there are my friends,
mm,
we've grown up in the same place, right? Variables are almost the same, but they
mm,
don't like that sort of compartmentalization. Like they like that because they get like they feel pretty lonely. Like, Western world can be very lonely. Like
Well,
if you are used to the
experience
collective
people have
culture.
shared, like they
yeah,
feel
yeah,
lonely sometimes.
yeah,
Like
Exactly.
turning
And
back to
so
their
so it depends on the person that you talk to, and it depends on like what works for you. And
mm,
that's why it is important to be self-aware.
mm,
Because you could be thriving in a culture like India and suddenly you become a low performer in the US because of all of this. Or you could be a low performer in India, like which was the case for me from this sort of interaction
mm,
perspective. Like point across this entire thing is that realizing the cultural ethos
mm,
of the region that you work in,
mm,
of the region that you feel like you want to settle in,
mhm,
affects your professional sense of achievement as well. It's a very socio-cultural technical combination
mm.
uh, to be able to feel satisfied and accomplished in life.
What has been the most, rewarding and the challenging aspect of earning a PhD? If you could, brief that for our uh,
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
that would be really great.
Hmm. I think the most challenging part of navigating a PhD
Mm,
is coming to the realization that this is your PhD.
mm,
It's your dissertation.
mm,
It's your path towards generating knowledge.
mm,
And at some point during your PhD journey, you realize that your professor, your advisor doesn't have any answers, right? Like realizing that
mm,
you are as knowledgeable as your advisor, in fact, even more for
mm,
that particular topic,
mm,
and really figuring out your own ways to actually graduate.
mm,
I think that we go into this program assuming that it's like a set program, like an undergrad, right? And a
mm,
PhD is not like that.
mm.
Maybe the first year, the second year, you will get help
Courses and all.
from an advisor, just like suggestions, what classes to take, what pathways to choose.
Mm,
But then, really, the beauty as well as the curse of a PhD is that you get to pick your problem to solve.
mm,
And because of the fact that there are constraints, it's not like you just get to pick any damn problem in the world,
mm,
right? PhD is a funded program and
mm,
it's being funded through a particular project.
mm,
So if it is funded through that project, the project constrains, of course, a lot in terms of which questions you can pursue.
mm,
But assuming that you have started a PhD in a particular area slash a topic,
mm,
and there is a selection bias, right? You went into that area assuming that you will actually be interested in it.
mm,
It becomes um, it becomes not that big a problem for you to pick out a particular problem and solve.
mm,
So that's one of the biggest challenges of a PhD in general, and that was true for me. One of the biggest advantages that I had in a PhD is having an amazing PhD advisor.
Mm.
That is not true for 98% of the PhDs.
Mm.
And again,
That's
98
good.
is a number that I'm throwing out. Point being is that there is like a huge
Majority.
amount of people
Yeah.
who are unsatisfied and who are unhappy with their grad life experience.
Mm.
And I was one of the lucky ones. And this is not because of something that I did or something that, I just had this great idea.
Mm.
It just like I just got lucky with the person
Mm.
whom I chose to be my advisor. I
Mm.
was lucky that I had done an internship with him to really know how he is as a person. And
Mm.
I actually had multiple offers, right? And I landed up actually still choosing
Mm.
Purdue to
Mm.
go for a PhD instead of going to a place like MIT or something like that.
Mm.
Um, because of the fact that I knew my advisor. So PhD is like a marriage, like you are really married to your advisor, and like you are in a relationship with this person for the largest amount of time in a day.
Mm.
And so you need to pick a good person who actually
Right.
cares about mentoring.
Mm.
So these were the things. Of course, my sense of accomplishment is just like I really think now
Mm.
I at least know better how to think.
Mm.
Like what PhD has taught me
Mm.
is tools and mechanisms
Mm.
to how to think,
Mm.
how to use words
Mm.
carefully, and how to connect what I'm thinking
Mm.
versus what I actually put out on paper or what I'm saying.
Mm.
I'm able to better use language as a
Mm.
tool to
Mm.
be able to compose thoughts
Mm.
that I was not as good uh, doing
In
before.
undergrad.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice. So, the main idea of articulating your thought process and writing it down or penning it down. It's a very difficult skill to have. Like I still
really,
struggle a lot with that. So
yeah,
if
yeah,
you've learned that part, I think it's a very, big part of solving a lot of problems if you could articulate what you are thinking, right? The buzz that AI and ML has created across industries, be it in any startups or even well-established companies or anywhere, even I'm sure at research ends as well. The
Mhm,
Chat GPT that was recently launched in India, at least,
mhm,
created a lot of buzz, and people are became very famous, is what I'm trying to
mhm.
say, and people are fancied with such word, although even a lot of people do not actually understand what it does, what are the pros, what are the cons. Since
Right.
you are closely working in this field, you have done a lot of research in this field. We actually had a very unique question that we wanted to discuss with you, like, and this was generated by an AI.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
to, so to make
Okay.
it more interesting, so could you discuss any ethical consideration that arise in your work with AI? So
Very interesting.
uh,
I love that you asked this question because ethical AI is close to my heart.
mm,
So I can give you one sort of general example. Of course, I can't talk about my own organization per se, but I can definitely tell you an ethical concern.
mhm,
Um, so generative AI is gaining popularity, right? Where what generative AI does is that it is able to learn a
mm,
distribution
mm,
and then sample from that.
mm,
And so if you feed it a bunch of images,
mm,
it can understand the general space of images and
mm,
then sample an image
mm,
which will look new to you,
mm,
right? And it like DALI is an
mm,
example that like
mm,
generates like, give me an image of an avocado chair,
mm,
and it'll convert those words, use natural language processing, all of that, and then be able to sample from a space of
mm,
images. So generative AI is gaining a lot of traction now. Interestingly, what generative AI can do is do video processing,
mm,
where just like Snapchat filters are there and so on.
mm,
A real video like that is being recorded,
mm,
you can change the race of the person
mm,
by changing the appearance of the person.
mm,
So if it's a white guy talking,
mm,
if it's a Caucasian male, you can use generative AI
mm.
to turn this into a African American person or an Asian person
Okay.
talking.
Mhm,
Okay. And so this sort of generative AI applications are being used in advertising industries
mm,
as something positive to increase the amount of representation
mm,
of demographics that are usually not appearing in ads,
mm,
right? So generative AI is awesome for
mm,
that.
mm,
Ethical concern is that this could actually really impact the humans
mm,
who are considered these minorities, these models who are, let's say, Asian, or let's say they are, even within Asian, like there is like South Asian and East Asian,
mm,
or they are African American. They
mm,
already didn't used to get a lot of gigs to do these ads. Like it's used typically like, blonde, Caucasian, white, blue-eyed males who get these sort of ads
mm,
and job offers.
mm,
The real impact of generative AI is that now, even though you have increased representation in digital space,
mm,
those humans who already didn't used to get those jobs
mm,
are now not going to get those jobs at all,
mm,
because already AI is biased. If it's a white skinned person,
mm,
generative AI works really well and can change the demographic to some other race.
mm,
But if it is a black skinned person, AI doesn't detect black skin as well because it's not trained on that much data.
mm,
So it's reinforcing
mm.
this
Got it.
notion.
Mm,
So how do you
mm,
resolve, how do you use AI,
mm.
where in one objective in the digital space it's increasing representation, but in the real space it's affecting humans?
So, could you also brief us, what I think is, as much as these, like you mentioned about generative AIs, I'm sure over the period of time, multiple form of AIs would be popular and would be widely used. And I think it's something that even human race needs to, solve their problems in a quicker manner.
Mhm.
But some kind of policing or, some kind of binding or some kind of laws or something would be in place sooner or later. What's your thought on that? To, like you mentioned, one of the cases, there
Mhm,
might be
mhm,
few more which right now maybe we can't think of, but
mhm.
as we, get deeper into the AI, as much it integrates in our life, the more, such problems may arise. So do you think there will be a need of, proper policing or, obligations or putting things in order to make sure that, such things do not happen? Or is there, if there is any, then
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely. So there are already regulations in
Mm,
place for AI.
mm,
The AI ethics right now is just being discussed as a framework, as a charter. It has not yet been interwoven
mm,
as much as we would like. But already, if you talk about like fintechs, like finserves, like financial service industries or financial technology industries,
mm,
they are already heavily regulated
mm,
because of the notion of fairness, disparate impact, and disparate treatment.
mm,
And so, since these are already codified in law, it doesn't matter whether the disparate treatment is happening through, and disparate impact is different from disparate treatment.
mm,
I don't think in today's world, any organization deliberately disparages amongst people. So
mm.
that's called disparate treatment. Like if you're sending black people in a different line and
Mm.
white people in a different line.
Correct, correct.
But a disparate impact is that unknowingly you're causing discrimination, which is harder to detect.
Mm,
But let's say there are confounding variables, right? Like if there is, since US is so segregated, if there are zip codes
mm,
that you're using as a predictor variable
mm,
for, let's say, the income of the person to
mm,
decide whether you want to approve a loan application or not,
mm,
zip code itself is a proxy variable for inferring
mm.
race.
Correct.
And so, because of that, you may be causing disparate impact to groups of population. And
Mm,
Zillow has a lot of these issues, right? Like, or any website that is recommending real estate to people. And
mm.
the same could be true even in India, right? Like Hindu communities want to stay together, Muslim communities want to stay together. So if there are packets or pockets of regions
Pin
in
code.
place,
Yeah, correct.
so religion driven, you
Mm,
could be causing disparate treatment. So there are a lot of laws already in place on how and how not to use AI within financial service industries.
mm,
And that's why we see a need for these industries asking more about fairness and bias mitigation tools.
mm,
Other industries currently don't care about fairness as much
mm,
because they just care about bottom line. But
mm,
regulations are going to drive how much disparate impact and disparate treatment you can have
mm,
in your data sets, in the training data, in the kind of people who are actually developing these models, like
mm,
the workforce bias.
mm.
Because data scientists said, like, I mean, tech industry is like plagued with not having women in tech industry in
Correct.
general. So that's already a big disparaging aspect. So who are the humans who are working on the technology?
Mm,
What kind of data are these humans collecting?
mm,
What kind of deployments are happening? And what are the downstream effects of these deployments?
mm,
All of these have ethical AI issues. And the more and more regulations are going to come, more and more there's going to be, need for the kind of services that we provide.
Nice. So this is really insightful. Actually, we also did not know a lot of things that you have mentioned. And the reason, we both are very happy doing this podcast is at the end of the day, we are learning something which we didn't know. So in case you want some specific that you're interestingly working on or something that you wanted to let the audience know that you're working on, we would be very happy to know on whether be it on the AIML part or anything that, you would like to share.
Yeah, so I'm a human-centered design guy. At the end of the day, I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not directly someone who comes from a CS background, but I see the future of, even AI ML being interdisciplinary. So what I would like to, let like at least the younger generation know is that don't just go crazy about going within CS as a field, because you could actually develop a lot more perspectives from social sciences, from psychology, from, human-centered design, and become an expert in that area that computer scientists or engineers might not really be able to understand. And then you provide that expertise of how to bring in a human-centered perspective, because that's what I'm doing. And so there is no one, path. Don't follow a cookie cutter approach. Recognize your strengths and go for that. Like I'm a human centered person. I use my social skills even at my work, and it helps me also identify how could people screw this up. Like when you develop a technology, understanding how humans are going to interact with it, how humans are going to perceive it. These are things which are going to become extremely crucial as we develop these technologies that are getting more and more integrated into our lives. And the technologies that attend or cater to the cognitive needs of humans, be it visual, be it, sound, be it natural language, technologies that aid in any of these cognitive activities are the technologies that are going to take off. Right. And they're going to come with all sorts of problems. They're going to amplify biases, like, in language, the way we speak, the words we choose, all of that has inherent bias in it. Similarly to sound, right? Like, Apple did a masterstroke move by like generating AirPods, because everybody was focused on the eyes to sell visuals, right? Like to make things pretty. But then they focused on the ears by selling, these kind of wireless technologies. So there will be different audiences. Like podcasts is like selling to the ears, right? So all these, like, if you think about it from that perspective, technologies that cater to cognitive needs are going to be the ones that take off, and people can come in from technology perspective, social perspective, cultural perspectives. So there's really no one path, and different people can have different pieces of the pie for this.
But thank you for putting down a lot of thoughts, and first of all agreeing to do this again. I've mentioned this many times, but yeah, we're very happy to have this conversation.